Hello, everyone. My name is Travis Morgan. I'm our Director of Admissions Consulting from Veritas Prep, and it's a great honor to be here with Beat the GMAT with our Write Like an Expert series. And so today we're going to be talking about Stanford GSB applications. And so it's great to have you with us. We have a great crowd here today and lots to cover, so we'll get right to it. My apologies for running just a couple of minutes behind schedule as we worked out some of the technical issues. Just so that you know, feel free to chat in any questions that you may have as we go. We do have a moderator who will look at those questions and will send those along to me as we get into the Q&A session and whatnot. But as they come to you, just throw in questions as fast as you want, and we'll go through those, as many as we can at the end. So very good. As I said, my name is Travis Morgan. I'm a Director of Admissions Consulting for Veritas Prep, and I've worked in the admissions space for many years now, have my own MBA as well. So we will we'll get right to it, shall we? So here's our agenda for today's session. First, we're going to really understand a little bit more about the GSB, Stanford GSB, and what it is like, what the culture is like, what they're looking for, because this is vital to you being able to write essays that resonate with the admissions committee. All right? Once we go through that, then part two is a little broader overview of the do's and don'ts of your Stanford essays. All right? Part three is we're going to dive right into the essays themselves and give you very strong tips on each of these essays. And as I mentioned, part four, the Q&A. So let's get right to it, shall we? So first, understanding the GSB. One of the key things to understanding the GSB is to understand the mission of the school. And they put it right on their website. It's to change lives, change organizations, and change the world. All right? And like, wow. Now, is this ambitious or what, right? Change lives, change organizations, and change the world. What I'm going to do is dive into each one of these elements to understand how this will impact your essays and your application to Stanford GSB, all right? So first, change lives. The first thing to understand is that the first life they want to change is yours, right? The life of their own students. And so they want to see in the application, do you embrace self-reflection to understand which people, situations, or events have directed your own values, passions, aims, and dreams, right? Do you really understand the direction of your own life? Do you understand the inputs that have come in to impact your life? And do you really understand yourself well, right? Secondly, are you sufficiently humble to recognize that you must continue to change and to learn so that you can then impact the world around you, right? A big theme of the Stanford GSB experience is change, right? And is kind of breaking yourself down and then building yourself back up so that you can become a better instrument for change in the future, right? So they really do look for people who have these passions, who have these dreams in life, and who have what it takes to pursue their dreams, but are also sufficiently humble to recognize that there's still a lot more that they have to learn, right? That there's a lot more that they want to get out of their Stanford GSB experience, all right? So that's this idea of changing lives. Number two, changing organization. They're looking for the type of person who really leaves a mark in every organization in which they are a part, right? So looking at this, your accomplishments, what you've done in the past, the impact that you've had on organizations is primarily shown in your resume and in the application than in the essays, all right? So we'll see this in the do's and don'ts, that a lot of people really try to showcase themselves in these essays and look at me, look at all that I've done, look at all of this. But really that belongs more in your resume and in many areas of the online application form itself, where you have opportunities to show the impact that you've had while you were in undergrad, in extracurriculars, in your professional life, versus the essays themselves, which are more part of getting to know you as a human being, as a person, all right? So, but in your resume and application, take a look at this second bullet point, be relentlessly focused on impact, right? Make sure that you're showing that everywhere that you've been, you've left a mark, right? That you have made an impact on these organizations, whether that's through direct results, increasing sales or revenue or whatever it is, efficiency, or simply determining new processes to make things more efficient, things along these lines, right? But also encourage your recommenders to focus on impact as well, because you can try to show the impact that you have had through these accomplishments and things in your bullet points on your resume, in your online application form, etc. But it really makes a difference when your recommenders also say, wow, this person has made a distinct impact on our organization, and here's how they did it, right? So I want to mention that up front as well before we dive directly into the essays, simply because it is so important to the GSB, and it will be such an important part of your application, even though we don't focus much on it in the essays themselves. All right, so then third, change the world. I mean, this is huge, right? The Stanford GSB is not just sort of putting little MBAs out there to be bean counters for their organizations, to to give them a few skills in accounting and finance and in whatever you want to focus on. They literally want to put people out there to change the world. So they want to know, what is the vision that you have for yourself, right? What are your aims, your dreams, your ambitions, right? These are big picture people, and they're looking for big picture people, right? So they want, looking at this first bullet point, they want applicants who see themselves changing the world, literally, right? What kind of impact are you going to have once you come out and graduate? However, Rome wasn't built in a day, and the world isn't going to be changed in a day either. It's okay to have a few steps that will enable you to achieve your ultimate goals, all right? So a lot of people see the GSB as this bastion of entrepreneurship, and it is, right? There's a lot, percentage-wise, I think it has more people who decide not to pursue other recruiting opportunities and decide to start their own businesses than any other top-tier business school. So out of a class of 400, they have about 70 people who, rather than trying to go out there and get a job with someone else and have them pay them, immediately upon graduation, they are looking to start their own entrepreneurial venture. But that's only 70 out of 400, right? The other 330, roughly, people have intermediary steps, right? And those intermediary steps may be very ambitious, and they may be looking to change the world immediately upon graduation, and that's fantastic. But there may be others who have more traditional steps, who go into finance, into management consulting, into marketing roles, into technology, into these sorts of type positions, but they still have a vision for themselves of how they can change the world, change their industry, change the organizations around them upon graduation, right? So they still have this grand vision and this ambition for themselves, and that is certainly what the GSB will be looking for. So I wanted to go into these types of things first to kind of understand what the GSB's mission is and what it is that they're looking for candidates, so that you can understand that vision and see how is it that I can fit in with that sort of vision as well. One other thing to remember too is just to take a little look at the GSB's student body itself. So they have small classes of about 400 people. This is opposed to, say, Harvard Business School's class of just over 900 people, right? So over double. This means that this is a tight-knit community, and there's a heavy emphasis on teamwork. So what do they look for in applicants? They look for humility, right? If it looks like you're just going to be too hard-charging and too focused exclusively on yourself, right? that you're willing to do anything that it takes to succeed, including cutting other people down, et cetera, then you may not be a great fit for the GSB. They're looking for friendliness. They're looking for people who are self-reflective. And they're looking for people who recognize the achievements and impact of others in their lives, right? Not simply themselves, right? They're also people who are just unabashed, right? They're unafraid to be themselves. And so they're looking for a genuineness and not just cookie-cutter applications, not people who are trying to be someone other than themselves, but they're just genuine. Their own personality and their own values just ooze out of this application. All right. And lastly, I mean, there's just one thing that you will notice about the GSB. It is the most selective business school in the world, and so they only admit about 6 or 7% of applicants. So they really get to pick one by one members who are going to be part of this class. And so one thing that just comes through is that these people are just interesting people. Now, does this mean that you have to have done some amazing feat that no one else has done, that you're trying to impress the people that, you know, oh, look, I climbed Mount Kilimanjaro and I did this and I did that? No, not necessarily, but they are looking for people who are just interesting, right? People who have something unique to share in that MBA classroom, a perspective that they can bring that is a combination of all these background and experiences and influences and people and all of this that have come together to be the person who you are today, right? And that's what makes you interesting. So that's just something to keep in mind is understanding the student body, what they're looking for, what the mission of the school is, and how you can fit, right? How you can uniquely contribute to this fascinating student body that is Stanford GSB. It is a business school that really is unlike any other, I think, in the world. So let's look at, now diving in here, the do's and don'ts of the Stanford essays. What are some key principles? And I'll tell you, I'm going to start with the don'ts so that we can then end with the do's, right? You know, end with the things that you should be doing, the things that you should be looking at. What's very interesting to me, by the way, is there's a lot of information on the GSB's website that comes directly from Derek Bolton, their Director of Admissions Consulting, and the Admissions Committee. And while a lot of people try to play this psychology game, like, oh, are they just telling everyone these things, so I need to then go out and try to do different things to try to stand out. What I found is I actually think that typically I don't emphasize a whole lot of what's on the school's website because you can see it for yourself, right? But I actually think that, that the GSB's website has excellent tips. And so what I'm going to do is try to frame what I say around what a lot of the advice that the school itself gives, because I think it is excellent, excellent advice, not only for Stanford, but also for your other applications to all the top-tier business schools. And I highly recommend that you dive in there, particularly with the points that we're making in this webinar here today, and understand what it is to apply to business school. It's much more than just your GMAT score and your GPA, and then, oh yeah, I throw in a few essays here and there, and that's about it. No, it really is this self-reflective process that is ideally, if you do it right, you actually learn much more about yourself through the process. And then you just sort of give the admissions committee the highlight reel, right? So this is emphasized on the school's website, and I'm going to emphasize it very heavily in our webinar here today. So don't, number one, don't try to tell the admissions committee what you think to hear, right? So you think, oh, you go out into all these different forums, and you go out and you participate in webinars like this, and you try to say, okay, what does the admissions officer want to hear? And I will simply just tailor myself to that. Here's what the website itself says, and then I'll have some additional points as well. They say, when writing your essays, resist the urge to package yourself into what you think Stanford wants to see. Doing so will only prevent us from understanding who you really are and what you hope to accomplish. And I've highlighted this last line because I think it is very, very important to all of your MBA applications, which is the most impressive essays are the most authentic. So while, yes, you can go out, talk to your friends, see what other people have done who have gotten into these schools, this sort of thing, but don't anchor yourself to that. You need to be authentically yourself. And so be very careful to rigidly follow templates and things that you have seen that have been successful for other people, because you may fall into this trap of trying to tell the admissions committee what you think they want to hear rather than just genuinely answering the questions from your heart, right? So a few points here. If you try to just tell the admissions committee what you think they want to hear, this may result in what I call a cookie-cutter application, right? It's one where, oh gosh, we've seen this one before, right? And it results in ringing hollow, that it doesn't really portray your true passion. And so if you don't spend the time in self-reflection before this, if you're just strictly looking at what other people say and what other advice there is out there and what you think the admissions committee wants to hear, and don't spend time really reflecting on these deep questions about your life, then you won't be able to show that true passion. And maybe you won't discover that true passion about yourself. Maybe you're thinking to yourself right now, my gosh, I don't really even know. I want to go to business school because I want to discover that passion about myself. That's fine. But part of that is discovering that passion now about yourself and portraying it in the essays, all right? Number two, don't try to impress the admissions committee with your many accomplishments, at least in the essays, right? So here's what they say on their website. Share the insights, experiences, and lessons that shaped your perspectives, right? That shaped your perspectives rather than focusing merely on what you've done or accomplished. And we're going to hit this even harder as we dive into the essays themselves. But just be aware that this isn't the place to try to be overly impressive. A few points here. There's a quiet confidence in having humility, right? You have lots of other space in this application to talk about your accomplishments. So you can let those stand where they are. Right now, does this mean that you should never talk about your accomplishments? No, right? But you should primarily talk about them in the bullet points of your resume and in the application form itself. And those should be wildly impressive, right? So those should be, right, that's the place where you should not be particularly humble, right? You should be, you should really showcase the best that you have to offer in the results that you've had, the impact that you've made on organizations, and being very, quantifying those results and making, and showing the scope of the impact that you've had, right? So, but don't here in the essays feel like you need to impress the admissions committee even further. Do you know that person who's like at a cocktail party or whatnot, who is just constantly talking about themselves and saying, oh, but you know, look at this that I did and look at that I did, and they're constantly trying to talk about their own accomplishments? That person is just wildly uninteresting. Right? Like, if anything, they're just annoying, and you just want to get rid of them out of this conversation. Don't be that person in your essays. What the admissions committee genuinely wants to understand are your values, motivations, your passions, what really makes you tick, right? By the end of this application, they want to see the world through your eyes. Now, granted, there's not very many words here to be able to do that, so you just maybe a little glimpse of the world through your eyes, right? What is it that really makes you tick? What gets you up in the morning? What makes you passionate about things? These are the things that the admissions committee wants to learn by the end of your essays, right? So if you're busy just talking about the past and what you've and I shouldn't just say the past, because actually we're going to focus quite a bit on the past, particularly in one of the essays. But if you're just trying to be more and more impressive and say, look at me, look at me, look at me, look at all that I've done, they're not really going to understand this underlying motivation in your life, right? And that's what gets you into Stanford, is being your true self, all right? Number 3, don't write your essays in an overly formal or academic language, okay? So here's a couple of quotes from Derek Bolton and also from the admissions website in general. In each essay, we want to hear your genuine voice, right? And then please think of your Stanford essays as conversations. When we read files, we feel that we meet people, also known as our flat friends, right? These applications that they're reading. And tell us your story in a natural, genuine way, right? So I say this is not an academic essay about a person who's named Travis Morgan, right? Well, first of all, if it's you, certainly you don't want to write about Travis Morgan because that's me. Instead, it's your chance to let the admissions committee see that world through your eyes, if only for a few minutes in reading this, right? So have it be first person. Have it be like a conversation. Have it be very natural and genuine. Don't have it be overly formal or in overly academic language. This is one of the common things that I see, that it's almost like reading a book report about a person who happens to have your name. But this is not a book report. It's you, right? So really tell me your story through your own eyes. Now, second bullet point of this is it's definitely okay to be smart and to be analytical, particularly if you're being self-analytical, but having that come through in a personable way, more like a conversation than like a very rigid analysis, this sort of thing, right? So that would be my third don't, is not to be, this is not an academic essay that you're going to submit for you know, a political science class or something like this, right? All right. And then 4, don't be afraid to talk about fantastic failures and what you've learned from them. So the quote here from Derek Bolton is, please be assured that we do appreciate and reward thoughtful self-assessment and appropriate levels of self-disclosure. Now, the key here is appropriate levels of self-disclosure and not shock value, right? So it isn't like you're just sort of saying, again, this sort of, look at me, look at me. Look at these horrible things that I've done, right? Look at it, you know, if you're going to talk about a failure that you've had in your life, that's fine, as long as the emphasis is on how that impacted you, what you learned from it, what you took away from it, how did you grow, these sorts of things. So what I say is, many people present themselves as this knight in shining armor who runs, you know, gallops into the rescue to save the day in every one of their stories. And honestly, that gets a little bit old. And it doesn't ring particularly genuine. And it doesn't ring particularly true, especially if you're sort of throwing people, other people, under the bus. You know, say, oh, all these other people around me made all these horrible mistakes, but look at me. I'm so great. I came in and saved the day, right? Instead, like, it's often in failure, or even maybe it wasn't failure, but just through significant obstacles that we faced. These are often the times in our lives when we learn the most about ourselves and when we grow the most in our lives. And so these would be good things to think about. Now, is that saying that I'm going to have you know, hundreds of people from Beat the GMAT go out and just write about all their failures? That's not necessarily a good strategy, right? But do you have to be afraid? Do you have? If you're so concerned about trying to impress the admissions committee that you're not being genuine about the times in your life when you really learned about yourself, the times in your life when you really grew, because you're worried that it might show some sort of chink in the armor, some sort of failure in your past, don't worry about it. Be genuine. Really show those experiences, because those are the things that have shaped who you are today. But don't also go on the other side and just sort of say, oh, well, Travis told me to talk about failures, so I should just talk about failures. No, it's one big narrative that all tells the story of you, all right? So if you don't have major failures that impacted your life, don't feel like you have to focus on those. And then, so those are the 4 don'ts that I recommend, but now I want to jump into the do's. And let's dive into these essays and really understand what is it that you should do in each of these essays. And so first, even before they tell you essay A, they give you this very quick instruction, but it is very telling of exactly what the GSB is looking for. They say, we request that you write 2 personal essays. The personal essays give us glimpses of your character and hopes. Isn't that interesting? Does it say, oh, it gives us glimpses of your professional achievements. It gives us glimpses of, what you have been able to accomplish so that you can prove to us that you're going to be able to change the world. No, it says glimpses of your character and hopes. In each essay, we want to hear your genuine voice, as we said. Think carefully about your values, passions, aims, and dreams prior to writing them. Do you notice that? Prior to writing them. So really putting good thought to this, rather than just the night before the essays are due, diving into them and just trying to throw something out there on paper. This is meant to be a real exercise. It may take you weeks or even months to really craft this. All right. And think about how personal this is, right? Your values, your passions, your aims, your dreams, that's going to be different for you than for anyone else on this planet. And that's what differentiates you, not just trying to come up with these fantastical stories or achievements to try to differentiate yourself from other people. All right, so essay number A, let's get to the meat of this, right? So what matters, so here's the question and exactly what they tell you right on as keys for success on the website, and we'll dive into these a little bit deeper as well. So essay A, what matters most to you and why? And they expect you to spend about 750 words. Let me tell you, this has not changed at the GSB for years, right? This has been the same essay year after year after year after year, while other schools sort of tried various different things, and kind of experiment. And so you can tell, in fact, this will be the most important essay in all of your MBA applications. And it is absolutely the most important essay to Stanford. All right? This is what they spend the most time on. This is what they really dive into, and it's what really helps them understand you as a person. And so they've laid out a number of things that they are looking for as an admissions committee, and it's true, right? So don't try to think this, oh, are they giving me this negative psychology or whatnot? Are they just trying to throw these things out here to trap me or all this? No, this is actually really, really good advice. And so we're going to dive into each one of these things, focusing on the why rather than the what. Reflect the self-examination process that you used within your response. Genuinely illustrate who you are and how you came to become that person. Share insights, experiences, lessons that shaped your perspective rather than focusing on what you've done or accomplished, as we've mentioned. And they want the essays to be written from the heart and illustrate how a person, situation, or event has influenced you. Note that it's not just strictly about yourself, but also outside influences and how that is shaped for what matters most to you and why. Let me give you just a very, I'm going to pause. I'm not going to do that. I was going to give you a very personal experience from myself, but I'm going to hold that off until a future slide here. All right? So let's look at each one of these individually, focusing on the why rather than the what. How do you do this, right? You use stories from your life to show the admissions committee why this particular thing matters most to you, all right? So you can spend a lot of words really talking about what matters most to you, right? You can talk about, and many people, and honestly, these can be, the things that tend to matter most to people in their lives tend to be these broad things about, their family, or, about making an impact in the world, or, about certain particular values, improving themselves day by day, or whatever it happens to be. Like, really get introspective here. But don't spend the entire 750 words just talking about that. You could spend 1 or 2 sentences talking about that, and the entire rest of the essay will be stories from your life, right? And even within each of those stories, look at this second bullet point. Don't emphasize lots of detail, right? Instead, use as few words as possible to tell what happened, and then focus on how these people, these situations, these events have influenced your life, right? Focus on the impact, right? Focus on how they have impacted what matters most to you, right? So, for example, I wrote in my own essays to business school that a particular experience that ended up becoming almost a theme for my whole life. So I was a Boy Scout when I was younger. When I was like 11 or 12 years old, I went to this Boy Scout workshop. And one of the speakers told us, this was in like a citizenship class, right? He said, no matter what you decide to do in life, be an influence for good in your community. And that stuck. I mean, I was like an 11-year-old kid, picking my nose and whatnot, right? So but even as an 11-year-old kid, this stuck with me, and I remembered this for the rest of my life. I don't even remember the name of the speaker. It wasn't like I was an avid note taker when I was 11 years old, but I can remember him. He's an older gentleman, bald, and came in and spoke to us. And so even though I don't even know who he is, he had this great impact on the rest of my life that then shaped my entire career, going into broadcast journalism, going in to get my MBA, going into the media industry, and going into coaching others to be able to pursue their dreams in admissions consulting. And so every point of my life, I can point back to this influence to say, be an influence for good in your community, right? And I always look for, how can I help others, right? How can I be an influence for good in my community, including what I do today and right now, which is help other people to pursue their own passions and dreams and be an influence in their lives to enable them to then make an impact and kind of pay it forward. So these are the things, like that one experience in Boy Scouts I can tell in 2 sentences. And then all the rest of the story, I talk about the impact that it's had throughout my life. Isn't that kind of interesting? All right. So then the second thing that we're encouraged to do is to reflect the self-examination process that you used within your response. Isn't that interesting? So actually, within your response, this might even be kind of an interesting introduction or whatnot. As I approached this very lofty question of what matters most to me and why, I thought, what does matter most to me? And here's how I did, here's what I thought about. Here's how I approached it. Here's how I approached this problem. So how did I determine exactly what matters most to me in my life? And so I looked at the various aspects. Where do I spend my time? If I have, a spare few moments, or if I have a spare day, if I got a day off from work, what would I do? If I didn't have to think about all of these other pressures, if I could really just do exactly what I wanted to do, what would I do? What would I spend my time on? Things like this. These might be exercises that you spend in self-reflection on determining what really matters most to you. Yeah, how are you going to determine what matters most to you? Looking at the second bullet point here, is it primarily self-reflection, or are you going to go out and talk to other people about what they think matters most to you, and what is the evidence that is shown that matters most to you? How did they determine that? All of these things, right? And who did you reach out to? Did you reach out to family members? Did you reach out to close friends? Or did you reach out to people who may not know you as well, just to see kind of what is the impression that you leave on other people? right? These sorts of things. And there's not one, it is not like you have to do it one way or another. It's not like you have to reach out to other people. Maybe you can just do it primarily because you already know what matters most to you. And in fact, you don't let the opinions of others determine your own values and goals, because that's something that is so personal and so genuine within yourself that you don't need to reach out to those people. That's fine. That's fine, right? So, but you can even actually write this out to the admissions committee. Tell them exactly what the process was that that you determined, and maybe this becomes a theme through the whole essay. Oh, when I talked to this person, they told me about this, and it reminded me of this, And then the next paragraph. Oh, when I spoke with this person, I was reminded of this impact on what matters most to me. That sort of thing, right? And then lastly, yes, Stanford is interested in the process, the self-reflection process, as much as they are in the outcome, the essay itself, right? So they're interested, tell them your process and dive into that. Third, genuinely illustrate who you are and how you came to be the person that you are. In the words of Derek Bolton, he said, tell this essay in a straightforward and sincere way. It probably sounds strange since these essays are for business school, but really we don't expect to hear about your business experience in this essay. Though of course you you can write about whatever you like, right? So yeah, they're really more interested in understanding who you are today and how you became that person. And this is driven home specifically by this next insight. It says, share the insights, experiences, and lessons that shaped your perspectives rather than focusing on what you've merely done or accomplished. I call this the Slumdog Millionaire strategy. And if you've seen the movie Slumdog Millionaire, if you haven't seen it, go out and see it. Stream it, rent it, get it from Redbox, whatever it takes. Go out and see it. This is a fantastic movie. But let me walk you through it. So it's about this boy who's on Who Wants to Be a Millionaire. And he's from the slums, and he hasn't had a formal education in any way, and yet he's able to get all of these questions correct, right? And he's going through, I won't give you the ending, but step by step, he's going through these questions that he should have no idea what they're about. And we see these little glimpses from his life in the slums and growing up, and the influences and the people who impacted him every step of the way that show how he came to this point today, right? That's what this essay is all about, right? So here's how your Slumdog Millionaire strategy works. Weave together mini stories, like that story I just told you from Boy Scouts that takes like 2 sentences to tell, that when compiled together really tell this compelling narrative that really help us see your life through your eyes, right? Each story should focus on what you've learned rather than what you've accomplished. And so what you want to do is find stories that are memorable, but that make a specific point, that really show us how you learned a specific thing, right? Or how you came to a certain value, right? Or maybe how you just had to get smacked in the face by something to come to some realization on what really matters and what really doesn't matter in your life. But don't be afraid to emphasize the influence of others, right? Don't be afraid to talk about the influence that other people and these experiences that you have made in your life. Just like this Slumdog Millionaire, it wasn't like this movie was trying to show his great accomplishments. Instead, it was trying to show how he developed the knowledge that he had today, and really the underlying story there is how he developed the character that he has today through these experiences. That's your strategy, is your Slumdog Millionaire strategy, right? And weaving together story by story to create this really interesting, compelling narrative about how you became the person you are today. Isn't that interesting? All right. So then lastly, they say we want this to be written from the heart and illustrate how a person's situation or event has influenced you. And we've already talked about this with the Slumdog Millionaire strategy. But don't be afraid to get personal with an appropriate level of disclosure, right? Now, this is still something that maybe it goes beyond just what you might talk about in your first conversations with your colleagues and things. But, you know, as you get to know your colleagues and whatnot better, and you really do talk about your own values and what you're looking for in life and things like that, it's that kind of level of disclosure. But, you know, if there are things that get into your really, you know, personal life that would be completely inappropriate to discuss with other people at work or whatnot, then you may want to avoid those topics. You know, I will leave that up to your best judgment, as does Stanford GSB, right? I mean, they use this as a telling mark of your own judgment. Really think about the prompt. What really does matter most to you? And be willing to spend a lot of time in self-reflection on this. We at Veritas Prep actually use tools such as a custom tool that we developed with the folks at Myers-Briggs Personality Type Assessment called your Personalized MBA Game Plan, to help you really dive into yourself and understand what matters most, right? And really see like how this reflects in all these different aspects of who you are and your life today. So we use these kind of tools to get self-reflective with you, and you know, and you can choose to use those tools or not, but really spend the time to understand your own true values and motivations, like what really drives you to do things, right? Then thirdly, don't just write this the night before the deadline, right? Go through many, many ideas and many drafts, and you may want to bounce them off of other people as you're going through this self-reflection. Alrighty, so a lot of things to kind of churn with here. Luckily, the second one is a little bit more straightforward, and I'll only spend a couple of minutes on it so that I can get to your Q&A as well. So SAB just simply says, why Stanford, right? It used to say, what do you want to do really, in all caps, and why Stanford, right? And that's really what this question gets at. Right, here's what they say on the website, and then we're going to dive in a little bit deeper here. But say, enlighten us on how earning your MBA at Stanford will enable you to realize your ambitions, right? I'm telling you, it is unreal. I mean, Stanford, in class, on campus, in your study groups and all this, it's like an unending conversation about pursuing your dreams. It's all about pursuing your dreams. And this is what they're getting at, right? Is how is going to Stanford going to enable you to realize your dreams, your ambitions? And so a strong response to this will explain your decision to even get your MBA at all, and then explain the distinctive opportunities that you're going to pursue at Stanford. This is not really, I mean, Stanford knows that they're great, right? Stanford knows that they're the best. Stanford knows all these great things about themselves. So it's not really an essay for you to try to convince them how great they are. They know that they're great. It's an essay to try to convince them of what it will do for you personally, right? What Stanford GSB, an experience there, will do for you that an experience nowhere else can do, all right? So given what you hope to achieve, how will your education and experiences at Stanford help you to turn those dreams into reality? Get into specifics, right? Are there specific courses, specific professors? Talk to current students. Talk about their own lives at the GSB. Talk about the impact that it's had on them. Talk about all of these things. Really get to know the school well, right? And so then Derek Bolton says, we give you broad license to envision your future. Take advantage of it. So the key here is to have ideas for your best self after Stanford and related objectives for your education, right? So envision yourself post-Stanford, immediately upon graduation, but also beyond, and particularly beyond. Stanford's more interested in your grand vision for yourself than they are for, oh, I want to become a management consultant immediately upon graduation. And they want to see like how the GSB is going to fit in with that vision. Okay, a couple more tips. So how do you plan to take advantage of the incredible opportunities at Stanford? Be specific. What are the competitions that you're going to get involved with? What are the clubs that you're going to get involved with? What are the classes that you're going to get involved with? What is the impact that you're going to be able to have on those other people there, right? Then how do you envision yourself growing and learning at Stanford GSB? How will the Stanford experience help you become the person you aspire to be? Again, be specific, right? This involves a lot of research. This involves talking to recent alums. This involves, if you can, stepping foot on campus and really seeing the vibrancy that is there, right? Now, if you can't, that's also perfectly fine, right? But that can just be one more arrow in your quiver there. And then again, you don't have to make up a path, but I am telling you some level of focus, like really showing a clear vision for yourself, even if you don't ultimately pursue that vision. Maybe once you get to the GSB, you discover a whole new vision for yourself, and you want to pursue that. Fantastic! But they want to see some level of, I'm here now, and I want to be there, and here's why the Stanford GSB is absolutely vital for me to get there, right? So here's kind of, if you're a visual learner, here's kind of the visuals of it. Saying, oh, here's what I've done to date, right? Like, here's what has made me the person that I am today. Here's where my goals, my dreams, my ambitions are. And here's why Stanford GSB is that vital link to get me from here to there. And these are the exact things that I'm going to do while I'm there. These are the exact experiences that I hope to achieve, both in the classroom and outside of the classroom. And this is the impact that I hope to make on the GSB while I'm there and beyond as well, right? It's not just them, it's also you, right? So this is the vision for this SAB of why Stanford, okay? Connect the dots really clearly from the bottom of the screen, sort of where, what you've done to date, how that's shaped your goals, your dreams, and ambitions, and how the GSB is absolutely vital for you to get there. Connect the dots directly, step by step. Don't be vague. Don't be generic. Don't be nonspecific. Instead, be super specific in every element of this, all right? Ooh, man, right? And talk about the process. Again, Stanford's interested in the process. So talk about talking with current students, recent alums, and how you're absolutely convinced that this is what makes Stanford the perfect fit for your goals. Just a very quick mention about the additional information. So it's not an optional essay per se. It's in the online application form. It's a section on additional information, but it's basically the exact same thing as other schools' optional essays. And so looking at the 4 bullet points below, you can address any issues with your academic or professional performance. If you don't have a letter of recommendation from your current direct supervisor, why not? But you can also talk about positive things, additional work experience that didn't fit on the form, additional academic experience, this sort of thing. But let's look at this top bullet point. The real key here is, if you're addressing weaknesses in your application, take ownership and responsibility. Right? So yes, you can explain extenuating circumstances, but you want to do that in a very straightforward way without seeming like you're like Mr. or Mrs. Excuses, right? You're not just trying to excuse your poor performance on other people. Listen, this is the most selective business school in the world. They don't have to make a lot of trade-offs, right? They look for the best candidates in the world. And so if there are things that, oh, you have an undergraduate GPA that doesn't really show your true intellectual abilities, you're a terrible test taker, and your GMAT score just doesn't reflect on the kind of impact that you'd be able to have on the school. Don't just try to sweep that under the rug. Like, yes, these are things that you should try to, first of all, improve, and rather than just trying to make excuses for it, actually raise that GMAT score and apply in a later round. But if there are some legitimate circumstances that you feel would be valuable for them to evaluate you, just be very straightforward, very brief. Don't go in, don't go into lots and lots and lots of excuses, and address those rather than trying to just hope that they won't notice. they will. All right? Gaps in your work experience, et cetera, et cetera. All righty, gang. So in a nutshell, tell stories, but use mini stories, right? You don't need a full intro, body, and conclusion in these. Be yourself. By the end of this application, they should really get a sense of who you are. If you're looking for additional help, we at Veritas Prep have incredible resources. I'm the director of this whole division where we offer these comprehensive school packages where you'll have a head consultant, but also a school specialist for every school in your package, including Stanford GSB, the most qualified team in the world. I will put them up against any other team you see out there who help you with all of these things. But we have options for every budget. We have hourly packages. We have packages that are focused much more exclusively on the essays, our Essay Excellence service, and our own essential guides as well to each of the top-tier business schools. So these are resources that we have available to you. So now I'm going to turn it over to Q&A. I know we only have a few minutes left, but if you want to stick with me, I'll stick with you, all right? So I'm happy to go beyond the top of the hour here to answer some of your questions. If you have questions about your individual candidacy, we have free services for that as well. If you go to veritasprep.com and you put your, you just have to go to MBA admissions and click on our free profile evaluation service. It's right there on the first page. We can answer very specific questions about, am I a good fit with the GSB or with these other target schools? What about this circumstance? What about this GMAT score? What about this undergraduate performance? What if I'm coming from this particular industry or things like that? Any of your concerns, we're happy to answer for free, right? So just go to veritasprep.com and fill out our free profile evaluation. So we have a number of questions that have come throughout this, and I'm going to answer all of your questions as they come through right now. And if we have more, we also have the chat party on Beat the GMAT in the Stanford GSB section, where I'm going to be on there answering tons of questions as well if I'm not able to get to all of them right now. Okay, here we go. Question 1. Are you at a disadvantage applying in the second round compared to the first round? And how do you overcome low GMAT for top-tier business schools? So, first of all, if we're comparing GMAT versus first round or second round, wait till the second round and improve your GMAT score. So there is no sense in applying in an early round if you're applying with a score that's going to get you denied, right? So, in fact, there's really no sense in submitting an application that's basically just going to be denied, okay? And these top-tier business schools do not have to trade off a whole lot as far as GMAT scores and things like this. Be very careful when they post the full range of GMAT scores, because always, every year, they're going to have 1 or 2 people who are down at like a 570 or a 550 or something really low who get into the school because they're just like wildly qualified, and the GMAT score just doesn't reflect that. They're like, you know, Mark Zuckerberg or somebody, right? You know, so you're not that person. I'm not that person. You're not that person. If you're about 35 points below any school's average score, you're going to be in the bottom 10th percentile. 35 points is not much, right? So just be aware, if you're more than 35 points below the school's average, you have to make a wildly compelling case for why they should admit you over other extremely qualified applicants. So the key thing really is to try to raise that GMAT score, doing everything in your power. Take it as many times as you have to. The schools really don't care if you take it multiple times, because it really shows that you are willing to do whatever it takes to achieve your goals. And that's a positive thing, not a negative thing. All right? Now, there are other things. You can go and take other classes at your local community college, or reputable online or distance education in microeconomics, in calculus, in finance, in accounting, hard-hitting classes. Get A's in them. Show that you'll be able to achieve academically. But honestly, even that will not, it generally speaking, will not alone overcome a GMAT score that is wildly below the school's averages. Question number 2, how does an applicant from an overrepresented group, so Indian males from IIT, differentiate themselves from the rest for Stanford GSB applications? And I'll tell you right now, the key is exactly what we've been talking about in this workshop. So most of the applications from Indian males, particularly from computer science, electrical engineering backgrounds, very technical backgrounds, tend to focus on their technical skills or tend to focus primarily on professional achievements. In your essays, you need to show your personality, your vision for yourself. You need to show great ambition, that you're not just looking to become like a program manager or product manager at a company like Cisco or something like this, but that you are looking to change the world. And you need to show a track record of this as well. So you need to show through outside extracurricular activities, through organizations that you volunteered through things like this, that you're not just a technically skilled, highly qualified job, but that you're a person who really makes an impact on the world around you, and that you do it now, right? That it's not just something that is an ambition in the future, but that you have a track record of impact. And that is the key for someone who, particularly is in an overrepresented group that tends to be stereotyped. Break out of that stereotype and show the person, who's really going to make an impact both while at the school and as an alum. All right. Number 3, when you say failures are okay to discuss, do you think one should only refer to business or professionally related failures, or there can be more personal ones? Great question, and they can be both. In fact, oftentimes they may be professional failures that felt like a personal failure, right? And you can talk about that personal thing. Or they can be very personal failures if they make a particular point, right? So don't just talk for failures for the sake of talking for failures, right? Really map out these essays so that map them out so that every single word is there for a reason. Every story that you tell, every paragraph that you tell, every sentence is there for a purpose, right? That is making a point to the admissions committee, that's saying something about you. And ultimately, even if you're saying it through a failure, it's something ultimately positive about yourself, right? Something that you've had to overcome. So, but don't make it, one thing that's very tempting to people as they talk about personal failures or personal things that they've had to overcome is that it becomes almost like a pity me sort of story. Like, oh gosh, poor me, look at these horrible, horrible things that have happened to me. That's actually not particularly endearing. And so again, don't focus too much on the what, and focus more on the impact that it's had on your life. As like, hey, yep, this is something that has happened to me, or this is something that I had to overcome, and this is the impact that it had on me, and then focus more on that, and really try not to have it be a tearjerker or a why me or just sort of a pity story. All right, good. Let's see here. Ooh, these are such good questions. Oh, good. So I'm currently working in a family company where I'm a director. How do I get a good recommendation? Do I rely on subordinates or source recommenders from outside the company? Good. So first of all, you're thinking I should not have my own personal family, my family members write my recommendations, and you're absolutely right. Don't do it. No, 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 right? But however, generally speaking, you should not have subordinates write your recommendations either, because there's sort of like a pressure. This is your boss, and there's a pressure on them to write you a good recommendation. So primarily when you're the director of a family company, where you don't have people directly above you, like a direct supervisor who's not a family member, you would look outside of the company to various things. Do you have a board of advisors, a board of directors, or mentors of this company who are not directly related to you, right? People who have seen you grow into this role, people who've seen you make stumbles, but also who picked yourself up and have just absolutely been fantastic in your role? Do you have longtime clients that you've worked with in this company? Do you have partners? Do you have anything else, anyone outside of the company who, and again, this isn't necessarily just family business. This can be entrepreneurs. This can be lots of different circumstances where it's very difficult to get your current direct supervisor to provide, or even someone who's very close to you in the company to provide these recommendations. But the real key thing that you want in your recommendation is not that they have some fancy title, but that they know you personally and that they have seen you professionally, right? These are professional recommendations, and they need to see sort of like your day-to-day work, habits, because they're going to fill out a whole questionnaire, kind of a grid, and rate you on various traits and things, and they're going to give almost like little mini essays about you that need to be super personal with examples, all right? So they need to know you very well and your own personal working abilities, all right? Question 5, does Stanford have a quota on foreign national candidates? The answer is no, absolutely not. And they are one of the most international schools that exist. So there are other schools that do, but it's very rare. So for example, INSEAD in France does essentially have quotas where no more than 10% of their class will come from any particular country or nationality. But Stanford does not. However, they do look for a very diversified class, so they don't admit a large number of students from any given country or nationality. All right, but there's no hard and set. They really do look at individual candidates and build the class one by one. What is the time frame that I should be referring to in my essays? College until now is good. Yeah, that's actually pretty good. But again, like, did I mention very briefly, not in great detail, but very briefly, this experience that I had when I was 11 years old? Yes, right? Are there impactful experiences in your life that have had an ongoing impact? Yes, right? But you need to tie those to yourself now and not simply tell a story, just like a nice story or whatever from previous in your life, without making that direct connection to the influence that it's had on your life today, right? And so, but primarily in the rest of your application, so your resume, your online application forms, all of these, your references, all of this stuff should come from college to date, right? All right. Question 7, Essay A. Is it appropriate to focus on just one experience and how it demonstrates what matters most, and be introspective about your thought process during that experience and how it really affects? Yes, you absolutely can. So I kind of gave the Slumdog Millionaire strategy here. But you can also give, Slumdog Millionaire happens to be a foreign film, but you can also give what I call the foreign film strategy. I'm in LA, I'm based in LA, so you're getting a lot of Hollywood strategies here. But the foreign film strategy, if you've seen especially old time, like from the black and white foreign films, it's like just sort of a glimpse in time from, from a life. And you have all these people who kind of go in and out of this little tiny period of time. And you see all these influences and you see all these things. But the movie itself may simply cover a matter of a few hours in a person's life. And you sort of come into them abruptly in their life, and you leave them abruptly in their life, and that's the whole movie. It's not super plot-driven, right? It's more about character. It's more about influences. It's more about kind of the underlying story, point that the movie maker is trying to make. And you can absolutely do that in an essay as well, where you really have just one story, and then you pull out several different influences or several different ways that it has impacted what matters most to you. Yes, that's a perfectly fine strategy. I call it the foreign film strategy. Sorry for all the film references. Question 8. How personal is too personal for essay questions? Do you have an example of an essay that you think went too far? Most of my examples actually come from people applying to undergrads. And I apologize for the graphic nature of this, but I really do want to try to answer this question. So, what may be, too personal is, I kid you not, there are examples of people applying, high school kids applying to undergrad, where when it was like, oh, what is something, that you've had to overcome? And it was like that they were, how do I put this in an appropriate way? Under-endowed as a male, and this is how they, this is like a real challenge in their life that they've had to overcome, something like this. Don't talk about things like that. Anything that your clothes cover, those are not things that we should probably be talking about unless it's something, that is like overcoming cancer or something like this, right? So, yeah, if you have extremely, extremely personal situations that are very delicate, that, for example, sexual assaults or abuse or things like this, these are things that should be handled very delicately, right? And is this something that you want to, incorporate at all in your essays, or simply avoid? Is something that you and perhaps, consultants or someone like this, you may want to discuss with them because it can be extremely delicate. And again, you don't want like a sob story, but if it's something that has certainly impacted what matters most to you, could you address it in a very sincere but delicate way, and then immediately move on into into other more positive things in your life? Yes, you can. So, but it's so delicate. You have to be so careful about that. All right. So, so that's some examples of things that you want to just be super careful about. So, question 9 is, what are the chances for older applicants? And sorry, my computer just went a little bit haywire, so I'm not sure if the display went out for you guys or not. But anyway, what are the chances for older applicants, say in their 30s? Stanford GSB does tend to skew a little bit younger, just so that you know. All right. Now, that doesn't mean that it skews significantly younger, whereas, many, if you look at the average age of, an average years of work experience of these schools, they don't skew it, they don't vary a whole lot. It tends to be 4 to 5 years of work experience, and average age somewhere between 27 and 29 for these schools. But their range does tend to be quite wide. But the real key is going to be in that why Stanford essay. You really have to show why Stanford and why now, right? Why not, 3 years ago, 4 years ago, 5 years ago, whatever. Why is now the best time to get your MBA? And even if it's sort of the true answer is, well, I finally got my act together, and now my life is put together, and so now I can finally go to business school. That's not a good reason. So we need to really look and say, like, oh, these are the experiences and these are the influences I've had in my life to this point, but this is now what I want to do. And this is, why the GSB is important now to add on to this additional experience that I've had. The other thing that you may actually want to take a look at as well is that uniquely Stanford has a program called MSX, so Masters of Science of Business for experienced managers. And so it's specifically designed as a full-time, one-year program for people with a little bit more work experience. And so you may want to take a look at that as well instead of just their traditional MBA, because it's so unique to Stanford GSB. All right? So how would you tackle Stanford application differently from Harvard? And I will say that these two applications have actually converged in the last couple of years, where Harvard has made a real departure and, and has made their application much more similar to Stanford. One thing about Harvard, though, is yes, they want to get to know you. Yes, they want, yes, you really want to present yourself as a person, as a human being. And that is the goal of their, of their application, is to get to know you better as a person. They they do, Stanford tends to be a little bit more, even more personal, and even more like what matters to you as a human being, even more like less about telling me about why you want to go to business school. I get it, you want to go to business school, and more about your own passions, your own desires, your own things like that. With the HBS one, I would recommend that you really make it a little bit more applicable, right? You know, they say, what else should we know about you? And you can tie that more directly into why they should know that about you as they're evaluating you as a business school applicant, and tie it a little bit more directly into applying to business school. That would be my advice. So good. Well, I've gone a little over time, and I apologize for that, but I think these have been fantastic questions. So as I mentioned, I am going to be on Beat the GMAT. Just go into MBA Watch, and we'll be on the Stanford page where we're going to have, oh, good. And you know, we put up the link right there for the Stanford page where I'm going to be answering even more questions. And as I mentioned, you can go to veritasprep.com and go to MBA admissions, and I'm putting the link in now, where you can, oh, maybe I actually didn't send that out to the whole crowd. Hang on one second. Or maybe BTG can actually put that out to the crowd. But you go to veritasprep.com and you go to MBA admissions, where we have our free profile evaluation service as well. So we can do both. But I'm happy to answer your individual questions on on our chat party right now. All right. So anyway, I hope it's been helpful for everyone, and thank you for joining. And we'll talk to you again soon, I hope. All right. Thanks, everybody. Have a great evening, afternoon, morning, depending on where you're dialing in from. Thanks all.